Looking back on the year in gaming, 2022 had quite a few ups and downs, but it did end on some high notes, for me anyway. For Battlefield fans, it started off terribly with the painful launch date of 2042, but it did get better with each month's update, to the point where I think it's safe to say that 2042 is actually a pretty fun game now. It's consistently populated and has a player base that has grown over the course of the year. DICE has managed to achieve this by listening to the community, reverting major changes to its gameplay such as pulling back 128 player modes, updating the problematic maps, and adding in tons of quality of life features it was missing at launch. And January of next year will bring one of the final big reversions to a more classic class-based system. DICE has set up the player base for a potentially good 2023 experience for the game. The big question, of course, is will DICE continue to support the title for the full duration of the year and or up until the next major Battlefield launch? A huge difference in being a Battlefield fan versus, say, a Call of Duty fan is the giant gap in content that players experience with Battlefield. Sometimes that wait can last for a year or even longer. Now, watching the new talent and leadership for DICE come on board over 2022 has been a massive shakeup for the studio, with more new studios and projects in the work than it seems like there's ever been. So perhaps we're heading into a very fruitful future for the franchise, but it's hard to know if we're going to see the results of the new leadership in 2023 or if we'll have to wait for 2024. Now, because Battlefield 2042's development had really slowed to a crawl for the majority of 2022, I had more than enough time to revive my interest in Star Citizen and was pleasantly surprised with the amount of fun content to explore in the live universe. There's arguably hundreds of hours of things to explore and do in the game, and I've really enjoyed my time getting back into it and following along with the development and getting to know members of the community. In hindsight, 2022 wasn't a particularly eventful year for the game, with some of the biggest updates not quite hitting their launch window this year. That said, some cool updates did roll out, even a surprise one that doubled the server size from 50 to 100 players with no noticeable downgrades in performance. Some of my most popular videos of the year were about Star Citizen showing off a massive hammerhead being crewed by 6 people, a tour of the entire Stanton system, a new player guide to getting into the game, and even an overview of some of the best ships you can buy in the game were all received extremely well by you guys. I think I'm most hyped about Star Citizen in general right now because the technology that it's employing in its latest alpha patch is amazing, and it's leading into the next major leap for the game, which will be server meshing. Come February 8th, then we'll be getting a roadmap for 2023, and I'm pretty excited to see what's planned. Most Star Citizen fans I know are getting extremely hyped about the new changes coming in the game, and I think 2023 could be a very big year in regards to meaningful gameplay updates. There's also been quite a few rumblings of approaching an actual Squadron 42 launch date, or rather a launch date announcement. Squadron 42 is the single-player game built in the Star Citizen universe using the same tech, and normally I wouldn't pay a lot of attention to these types of rumblings, as the running joke has always been that Squadron 42 is only 2 more years out, but I've heard enough of these rumors lately that it seems to be holding a lot more weight in my mind, and I feel pretty confident some big Squadron 42 announcement will happen in 2023. Maybe not an actual release, but perhaps the release date announcement and accompanying marketing hype. I've certainly got my fingers crossed. Now, beyond Star Citizen and Battlefield, I definitely dabbled in plenty of other games over the year. Sadly, Modern Warfare 2 was a bit of a letdown for me. Objectively, it's a competent game in many regards, but I think I've just been over the COD formula for too long. Realistically, I don't think I've been particularly engaged in the franchise since like 2007 with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and even then I reverted back to Battlefield pretty quickly. I'm happy that Call of Duty players get such big games so regularly, but I'm disappointed that so much of the FPS money and hype goes into a title that I just don't find particularly interesting anymore. Big budget shooters are adapting to the rapidly changing gaming landscape, but I think I need to just let go of the idea that COD will one day become a game that appeals to me. Now, in the indie FPS realm, there were some really fun updates throughout the year. Boundary is a zero-G astronaut FPS game that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. The playtest in 2022 was fun and it left me wanting more, but alas, its release has been pushed all the way into 2023. I sincerely hope this shooter has legs when it launches. It's a fun new concept that shakes up the stale FPS formula with some zero-G combat and abilities. I think the devs can push it further. They really borrowed too much from COD for their UI, which I think was a bit of a mistake given the realistic visuals and stuff, but we'll just have to see what happens with it when it finally launches. Then there's the finals, an upcoming game show-like FPS that I'm actually really excited about. It's being developed at Embark Studios in Sweden with some ex-Battlefield devs. It's probably got the most advanced destruction system that I've ever seen in a video game, and I'm always excited for games that focus on destruction. I did get access to some behind-the-scenes stuff for it in 2022 that got me extremely hyped, and I want to see more, which should be coming hopefully in early 2023. Now, World War III, the modern, somewhat Battlefield-like FPS, saw a player surge due to it going free to play in 2022. I did drop back into it to sort of check it out and see what's changed. The game is very competent in many ways, but I think its major flaw is that it just feels too similar to Battlefield without the AAA production quality. So while playing, I often felt, why not just go back and play Battlefield instead? The player base has dropped off a lot since its free-to-play launch, so we'll have to see what happens to the title in this coming year, but in my opinion, the gameplay isn't quite compelling enough to make me choose it over Battlefield. Now, the realistic military FPS Squad, on the other hand, has seen some really big updates this year and is actually more popular than ever. I'm extremely happy for the dev team on this one. They've been working for a long time on the project, and I think Squad has really solidified itself as an approachable and realistic military shooter experience. I've always had a fun time when I jump into this game, and as long as you're willing to get on the comms and ask questions when you don't know what you're doing, it's usually a fun time and an experience that I haven't been able to get in any other shooter. Now, there have been some interesting game trends from 2022 that I think we're going to see a bit more of in 2023. Crossplay is becoming more and more common in FPS titles. This is people playing on different consoles and on PC in the same servers. The devs unfortunately have the impossible task of trying to equalize player skill across multiple platforms, usually by massively increasing the auto-aim power on console to match up with keyboard and mouse precision. However, we're starting to see a lot of players prefer to use controllers even while playing on PC in many cases because of just how powerful the auto-aim has become, so games like Halo are starting to add subtle auto-aim to PC as well to try and balance this out. And I think we're going to start seeing more PC games add auto-aim for keyboard and mouse in 2023, and I am quite honestly very concerned about this. It does seem like this path is somewhat inevitable, and we'll just have to see how crossplay really changes the gaming landscape in this regard. Now, late in 2021, Epic really started showing off what the Unreal Engine 5 could do with an awesome Matrix tech demo, and in 2022, indie developers and freelancers have been really pushing this tech to the max and just showing off some incredible stuff. We've already begun to see some really impressive photogrammetry with it, and I think going forward, we're going to see more photogrammetry and photorealism in indie titles as this technology is becoming highly accessible to indie developers and fairly inexpensive. This could be a giant leg up for the indie crowd to start producing titles that look as good as AAA games. And any new tech that puts more power in the hands of indie developers is a great thing in my book, because the indie scene is really what pioneers and pushes the envelope in terms of new game concepts and ideas. Now, in hindsight, 2022 was a year with a slow start for me in regards to good content launching, but it certainly picked up its pace, and toward the end, some truly fantastic updates became available for my favorite titles. I hope this momentum carries through into 2023. I'd be curious to know what your most played games were of 2022. For me, it's kind of been a toss-up between Battlefield 2042 and Star Citizen, depending on what time of year it was. I hope this momentum carries through into 2023. I'd be curious to know what your most played games were from 2022. Any gems that you found that perhaps went under the radar for most gamers? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see my coverage of Star Citizen's latest mega upgrade, which really is setting the stage for 2023 development, check out this video here. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.